This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Nick Grillo. Nick is the founder of Elevate Vending. Welcome to the show, Nick.
I appreciate you for having me out. Thank you.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Before we go into your personal story, I like the audience to get to know the business in case they haven't heard of Elevate Vending. What do you folks do there, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of have a really fresh and new, innovative way to a very dated industry, and it's vending. It's something that we've all used. I mean, I'm sure you've used a machine where maybe you put $1 in and something didn't come back out of it, or something came out and it wasn't very good or expired. And we're really on the forefront of trying to really correct that problem and give the workplace something different.
Nice. Are you mostly in the local area, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Northern Virginia?
We are. So we're stationed right out of Springfield, Virginia, but we service the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. So we're a local company in the local community and trying to kind of bridge and bring everyone local together.
I love that. Are you originally from this area, by the way, Nick?
I am not. I am one of the many, many cases that the DMV knows, and I migrated from New York down to here. I was kind of tired of the cold weather and amongst all the other things that went on. So my family and I, we did what we call the Great Migration. My mother, my older sister, brother-in-law, niece and nephew, now my wife and I all kind of migrated from New York during the pandemic and said we were kind of done with the cold and on to something new.
Did they all move to around this area or just further south somewhere else?
No, all the same area. So my mother is right from Sicily. We have this thing that it's not intentional, but it just happens this way. It's Everyone seems to move in packs. So my mother lives 2 streets one direction from me, and my older sister lives 3 streets the other direction. My younger sister's moving from Boston to come to this area, which if history tells us anything, it's probably going to be in a pretty close vicinity to where we all are.
I love that the family's so close together. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
it's
know,
good.
you don't see that much nowadays. But I think it's more commonly seen in more like immigrant communities, right? I have friends like even sometimes I'm even thinking about it now. I have Indian friends that all even within the same household, you have several generations just living together with grandchildren and grandparents and all.
Yeah, I mean, that really are my upbringing around it was really the multi-generational home. We didn't live in one, but my Zias, my Zios, at some point or another, everyone lived together under one roof and then slowly kind of branch out to their own area. I don't know. I love the idea and theory of a multi-generation. I'd love to see my mother live in the in-law suite one day if we ever have one of those. But yeah, for now, we just think stay close enough that it's walking distance, but far enough away that we all still have our own space.
I agree because like if you grow obviously growing up with your parents, we're like, oh, this is great, but then I don't know if your significant other will feel the same way 100% of the time, right? Because it's different. It's not their parents, it's your parents.
Oh, exactly. Like if I love my in-laws, I don't know if I want to live with my in-laws. And just like my wife loves her mother-in-law, my mother, um, don't know how she'd feel if it was just one door knock away to going and visiting. But
Yeah. So what part of New York are you from?
so I'm from Syracuse, and
Okay.
that's where we all are. So most of my family, when they came over from Sicily, ended up in St. Louis, but my mother ended up settling out more in New York, and that's where myself and my 2 sisters were raised.
So your mother is from Sicily. Actually, she was born there?
She is, yep, she is. So
Oh, okay. So you're like
um,
first generation here as far
correct.
as
So
okay.
yeah, it had its own learning curves. There were so many things as a as a little kid growing up not thinking were odd things until you go to school and then you find out really quickly that's just not what everybody does kind of thing.
Yeah.
uh, so eating together every Sunday, thought that was a normal thing. Apparently it wasn't. It's funny as an adult now how much I appreciate it, but as a kid how much I couldn't stand it. As a kid, all my friends had peanut butter and jelly on Wonder Bread, like white Wonder Bread, and I thought that was just like the coolest thing that was ever given, but we didn't have that,
Yeah.
right? Or my mother was like, "You're not going to eat that stuff." So we would come in with like pasta, meatballs, whatever it was that was cooked from the night before.
Yeah.
It was like this like little mini spread, and I'd be sitting there eating this like homemade cooked meal, upset that I couldn't get a Lunchable or a Wonder Bread sandwich or something. And now as an adult, whenever my mother, hey, I cooked something up, do you want to swing by and grab it? It is like instant, like, yep, I will be right there. Absolutely. So that's how it is now. My
Yeah.
kids, same thing now. They're obsessed with it. They just know they go to Nona's and they get pampered and they get all the food.
That's the best home cooked meal. But it's true, like growing up, you sort of want to fit in, right? We're like, oh, how come they have this PB&J or the Capri Sun or juice box and I
Yeah.
don't have that, right? Or
I thought a pizza Lunchable was like the biggest gift to the earth ever. And as an adult, I'm like, this is not good. Like I don't give it to, I don't even give it to my kid, kind of thing like that. But that's all I want as a kid. But now it's kind of that appreciation that you have later in life, especially as now, like I said, having two kids, having nieces and nephews, that you're like, wow, like how much, for myself that my mother did for us as kids and what she really sacrificed so we could have a good life.
so growing up in Syracuse at home, was it mostly Italian spoken or how was it?
We had my mother always kind of spoke a little bit like kind of a blend between the
Okay.
two. Kind of depend. I would also say maybe it depended on what temperament was going on, was which language it ended up in. Um, but for myself, I can understand pieces of it and most of it, kind of like the context. My older sister's fluent in it. My younger sister is becoming, so I'm kind of like the last one that kind of needs to get a little bit more on the actually being able to speak it. So when we actually do go back and visit again, I'm able to be on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be fine. Like the times that I've gone to Italy, and I don't know any Italian, but I'm fluent in Spanish. I'll be fine. Just I'll be talking to whoever's serving us, whatever, in Spanish slowly. They'll talk to me in Italian slowly, and we get the gist of it. Like it's great. Like it's fine. We get each other.
Yeah, just enough context, right, to understand
Exactly.
what it is. And I think the greatest thing about both cultures is everything you can see with me. My hands start moving, everything. So if you don't know what it said, there's usually just at least a point or some kind of gesture that gets you at least on track with what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. So in Syracuse, obviously besides school, do you remember what were you into? Would you like to do after school, outside of school?
I was a huge hockey player. I loved hockey. I
Of course,
still love hockey.
That's big in Syracuse.
Yeah, big, well, in New York, I guess the fortunate thing, if you like it, is it's cold a lot of the time. So hockey was a big thing. And that was really, through my childhood and stuff, that was really the thing that anchored me, beyond family was, kind of the competitiveness, the sport, everything that really went around it. It carried a lot into here, even still as an adult, when I going to Capital One Arena, watching the Capitals and
hmm
and everything like that, it's already here.
That's great. So after high school in Syracuse, did you know what you wanted to do or what happened after?
I was one of those cases where high school just I didn't find a purpose in it. I couldn't stand. I couldn't wait to leave high school. But I didn't really know what I wanted to really fully do. I was working full time in my uncle's roofing shop. He owned a commercial roofing shop, and I worked in the warehouse and did all of that. But I didn't really know. College didn't really feel like a fit for me. But I didn't want to just not do anything at the same time. So I ended up joining the Air Force, pretty much right out of high school, and that was a lot in my brother-in-law's footsteps. I saw what he did after high school and when he enlisted, and really what it did for him, and that he got really, I'll say, kind of a modified version of a college experience, right? Of
hmm
learning a technical skill, things like that. So that's why I ended up deciding to do in 2010 was enlist, and I went into mechanics. I was really big into like anything kind of mechanical I could tinker with, and started off as a aircraft powered support systems mechanic. So I worked on all the things that supported the aircraft and its launching and its missiles, anything like that.
That's interesting. Thank you for serving, by the way.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Especially we just went through, we just had Memorial Day yesterday. So it's a big thing. So you said you were in mechanics so you're basically fixing planes?
More or less. So, everything that, you use to work on an airplane was something that we worked on. So I did that for about the first 4 to 5 years of my career. And then I moved
hmm
more into kind of more of a management role. So I was in training management, so more kind of like strategic, operations, workflows, things like that. So, and that's where I really rounded out after did 12 years and ultimately rounded out my career in that area.
Oh wow, so you did 12 years, so you basically a whole career, right?
Almost a little more than half of one, and it was it's a great lifestyle. It was a great, there's a noble cause and things like that. But after my 12 years stint, that's actually how I met my wife when I met her on base. If
Oh
you asked
really?
me then what I know now, I never would have thought that her and I were going to be the ones to get married. I'm so glad I was wrong in that area. But
Why do
yeah,
you say that?
when I first met her, she was just this nice, what I thought very pretty, pretty girl, and like was always bubbly, and we had like little jokes and things like that. I actually met who is now my father-in-law. I met him in Hurricane Sandy. They sent all of our whole detachment down, and we were actually the first convoy into Staten Island after Sandy had hit. And I was with Tom, who was enlisted. He just retired after 20, I think it was 25 years he just retired. But I was sitting there super young, never had done any of this stuff before, driving a Humvee, and met him. Never thought I'd marry his daughter down the line or anything like that. So
Did you first meet him or her?
I met him, and he
Oh.
lets me know that all the time that, hey, remember who brought you into this whole thing, into the whole fold. So yeah, that's how I met him. We were in a Humvee together. We got in a Humvee accident together. We had kind of like that's where our bond was basically started, was
Okay.
kind of through a disaster. So
Wow. So you served 12 years, you said, right?
yeah, correct.
What made you decide? I mean, you're already for a long time there, Nick. You weren't thinking, let me just do the whole thing, or you were like, hey, it's time to get out, or what happened that made you, decide to maybe do something else or consider something else?
My career was really great, and truth be told, I really felt I was going to do the 20, kind of
Hmm.
and ride the ride. And I started to get kind of to a point in my career. It was just, it's very different than I felt like how when I initially started to kind of where it was. And I felt like it was a lot of like really squandered like potential, a
Hmm.
lot of the, hey, Joe's got to go before Jim to get to here. And it felt like there was a lot of things I loved, but pieces that kind of kept you at a certain level, right? You couldn't excel because you're either too young or something like that. So as I really started to kind of look around and really think about, where do I want to be? I ended up making this leap. I did ours during the pandemic, which was crazy. So my wife and I together decided, hey, my wife got orders down here to Andrews and said, hey, let's do this move. And at that time was when I said, you know what, I think I've kind of had enough. I think I want to go pursue something different. I got out, and then March of 2020 we purchased our home initially in Maryland. We closed on our house at 5 o'clock p.m. and at 8 o'clock, the entire country shut down for the pandemic. So
Wow. That same day.
that same day, and so
Okay.
I had said, "Hey, I had made this decision, and like most, I think veteran guys, right? You just are veterans in general. You make a decision, and then you're just like that. That's what it's going to be." So got out and I had no job. I had nothing lined up. And then everything shut down. And I had a moment of what am I gonna do? And was, a lot of doubt, right? Was this the right decision to get out? Should I have just stayed in and did it? And hindsight, in all the kind of the chaos, it actually worked out. I started my first business right after that. I say kind of accidentally. I started a smart home security business. I was home during the pandemic, no job, no prospects of a job lined up. Um, and I put something on Nextdoor, said, "Hey, I'm Nick. I can do handyman work, right? Handyman stuff, pretty good with like little tinkering, automation stuff, kind of from my mechanical background." And
Hmm.
it started off with one job, somebody who was just really kind, just wanted all this work done to her home. She put up a nice review. And then that review led to like another phone call. And then it was like three phone calls, and there was 10 phone calls, and it just kind of took off from that. So just was kind of showed up and really didn't intend for it to go that way, but it did. And it was great. I met a lot of fantastic people. I was able to exit that company after a certain amount of time. So,
Was
and
this
start
just
moving.
handiwork, Nick, or because you said security, so it started as handiwork, you said, right?
Yeah, so it was handiwork, and then it was looking at like ring security cameras.
Okay.
So different like alarm systems, security cameras, or it was, even if it was mounting a TV or putting specialized like accent lighting that interacted with TVs and things like that.
Okay.
So it kind of started to blend more away um, from like the contractual kind of work and really more just into the automation, installation, and kind of trying to bring something new and unique to someone's home, especially when people had a lot of time at home and were working out of their offices and things. It turned out to be a great time to start something accidentally.
I'm sure you were busy, like you said, because now that I think about it, everyone's home, right? And they're like, hey, I need to set up my monitor, like you said, or other tech, in the house.
So that was it. Truth be told, couldn't really keep up with it for a while. I'm calling my wife, who, she's at home, but I'm calling her saying, "Hey, can you get on the computer? Can you send this over really quick?" And calling somebody else, "Hey, could you pick this up on your way?" And until it really started to formulate its own thing, it was just phone call after phone call. We did a lot of custom movie theaters, like inside of homes, which were really cool.
Uh,
Just trying to figure that out. But like you said, everybody was home and said, well, I'm not going on that vacation. I'm going to put that money back into my house so I have a nice place to be at. And I like to think we were a big part of it, but it was just a really cool thing to start off with.
and this was just you solo basically doing everything, or did you have any help?
It was myself solo for a while, and then I started being able to finally find some like good people I could kind of bring in to at least help me. So a lot of the technical stuff was still relying on me, but being
Hmm.
able to physically get that amount of work and labor done, I was able to work with and bring in some other younger guys, and we really just grinded it out and figured it out as we went. And I think the biggest piece is we learned that we met a lot of people along the way, right?
Yeah.
It's the connections that we still talk to today that we met back then that never thought we would have not only met, but also continued to have a relationship with.
How long did you do that for?
So if in 2020 it started, so in 23 was when Elevate was started.
Okay.
So at that point, I was already kind of trying to exit out of the security industry where I did a little bit of consulting with a different vending company and really saw like a gap in the marketplace. And then that's really how, Elevate ultimately ended up being started.
So that's very different from what you were doing, with, by the way, you said it all started with a Yelp post, or how did it all start?
It was Nextdoor.
Or
It was just a
Next door.
Nextdoor
Okay.
thing, and
Okay.
yeah, that was it. People were very active on Nextdoor at that point in time. There's nothing else really going on. So
Yeah. So, how did it what made you decide to like move away from sort of the home service industry, right, with security to like, hey, like let me look into vending, which is something totally different.
it it started off with kind of like I met somebody through the security side of things who was doing the vending business, and as I was
Ah,
talking with them and kind of like really getting an idea of like what it really even is, I had zero background in it at the time,
yeah.
and it was, I believe it was kind of like this commonality thing that I kind of noticed more later in time between, military service, what I did with the security company and kind of where we're at now. And it's really providing a better service and getting things in front of people that some, others aren't doing, like providing that full kind of class A style of, of products, of offerings, of service around what we do. So when that started, we really saw a really huge gap in the marketplace of, hey, this industry hasn't really been touched, right? It's been kind of the same giant players in the industry for such a long time doing the same old thing. And they're just kind of like well, this is what we have. And that's it. So that's really where then the ideas started to flow and the concepts around like, hey, even this successful company that we're talking to and consulting with isn't even touching, so what if we did something like that separate? And that's really where Elevate ultimately ended up being born from.
So it started, you said, in 2023, right? Elevate Vending.
Yep, June of 2023 was when we launched. We were picking out our name in June, still figuring it out, but that's really when it was born.
So you said, so someone was consulting with you as far as vending. Is that what it was? Someone was, I guess, helping, guiding you through the process, or?
So I'd say it kind of became reciprocal. I did some guidance for them and their brand, more from not the specific on the vending itself, but more so on the customer and consumer interaction, the engagement, the
Hmm.
offerings, things like that. Um, Kind of fell on deaf ears a little bit over time. It was like, well, why change it? It's not broken, right? So that's where when we launched this, that's where really those ideologies came in. So unfortunately, that company actually did go out of business, but in the relationship stance, continuing to talk with some of the owners actually helped provide us with bits of guidance as we hit pieces of the vending business that we had never dealt with before. And we're able to kind of reach back and say, hey, we're doing this. What is your guys' thought on what you saw? And then we can kind of weigh those two things out of what's the best approach.
Sure. So, starting the vending machine business, how does it work? Step one, you buy first a machine or how do you even find the place to place them? Do you start just knocking on doors or calling people or buying a
So
route? How does it?
yeah, all of our stuff. I mean, it really started off grassroots,
Okay.
and it really was. It was showing up in a polo with "Hey, I'm Nick, and we have something really cool for you," right? And but what it's really evolved into, there's no purchase necessary at all. So we find businesses, whether it's, and it can be really anything. It could be airports, car dealerships, residential, hospitals. Our platform fits everywhere.
Hmm.
So once we find that and formulate that relationship, we provide that brand new AI style modernized equipment at no cost to them. We provide all of the service, all of the products, and everything at zero cost. And we make our revenue through our transactions and sales, but we get to provide a really high-end amenity, something that gives people, maybe a bit more of a purpose for wanting to show up to work because they have something that they can't really get at home. And
Hmm.
then we place that in there and then we manage it, we service it, we repair it if it's ever needed, and deal with everything from A to Z.
Oh, that's great. Is there ever I'm not familiar with the business. Is there ever like a revenue share with wherever you place it or no, is typically
So for us, we don't offer revenue shares, while other companies in the past have, and that's kind of become a little bit of an industry standard of, I'll give you the space, but you have to pay us a percentage. We
hmm.
focus so heavily on that consumer engagement and
Okay.
providing something that really isn't comparable to another type of brand or product. Um, there we really don't have the requirement. So we look at it as what's more important. Is it creating revenue for, a small bit of revenue for your business, or is it providing something that's so, I would say remarkable or something so different that it's not really worth the money, right? It's more about the consumer, the
Hmm.
employee, the customer experience. And that's where we focus more on the customer experience aspect.
So your vending machine, let's say, and the great thing, and I know you were actually consulting with the other company, is you've built a brand with Elevate, which you don't really even see with this type of business, right?
Correct. I mean, that's really, how do we engage, right? How do you even get someone to care about what's in your machine, right? And
Hmm.
so we really, to exactly what you said, we try to build a brand around a voice, a tone, everything that goes along with that. This is a full functional business that we operate. There's a lot of mom and pop places which are fantastic, but might not really have the capabilities to get into the areas like we've been able to by pushing us and creating an actual brand and atmosphere, employees, everything that goes along with it.
How is Elevate Vending different than Joe Schmo out there with their vending machines?
Sure. We hit it in kind of a few different pillars. So very first and foremost, we don't do anything with traditional vending machines at all. So not the ones that everyone's really been accustomed to, where you push a button and something kind of drops out.
Hmm.
We do two different concepts. We have open market concepts, which you've probably seen if, going through Reagan, you might see open market concepts. And then we also have AI style coolers, and they're locked all the time. You tap your payment method, you just open the door and take what you want and you close it. And that's that. So it takes camera vision and identifies the product and it does an instant transaction at that point in time. So there's no theft or anything like that. So we kind of hit it from that piece first and foremost. What's the presentation and what's the actual interface people use? And then we do carry all the traditional items, right? We work with Coca-Cola, we do work with PepsiCo, we work with a lot of the major brands directly as a basis. But we put all of our emphasis really in carrying things that are locally sourced, things that are made right here, like in the DMV area. I'm staring at one right here. We just walked and talked to Just Tea right out of Bethesda that we're going to, start working with. We have a relaxation tea. We have a healthier chip company, a healthier brownie company, all things that are made right here, and they can be 100-person operations or they could be a sole one single person creating their product for the first time. So we get to bring that. We put all of our emphasis and energy around promoting those types of businesses. And we also do carry fresh food on site. So we work with Mighty Meals exclusively on our fresh food aspect. So we have over 150 different fresh food products made, full meals made right here in the DMV area that we get to offer right on site. And then we also couple them with the service and how much emphasis we put on the presentation, making sure it has the items people actually even want to care about. We do that through a lot of consumer data, feedback. So we try to couple it and hit all these different areas to give it a very full rounded package for somebody that kind of makes them, wonder why would you jump ship?
That's amazing. I love everything. I mean, I didn't know, Nick, that you carried, like all these locally sourced products. That's fantastic. You definitely do not see that.
Yeah, it was unique, right? And we kind of looked at, well, hey, and also we had met some of these people who were like, why I can't get this product at Wegmans, right? Or I can't get
Yeah.
here. I can get it through their website, but I'm one of those consumers that I might want to try something, and I'm always reluctant to say, hey, I'm going to go buy a 12 pack or 24 pack online and see if I like it.
Hmm.
That's just not how I generally buy. But I'm like, I can't get this anywhere else. So it was, how do we get these products into different demographics and different areas that even they as a provider might not have access to, and as a consumer might not have access to. So we're huge on relationships. I think that's really the core basis of what Elevate's based around. And we do that through working with people in the community, understanding just like this podcast, understanding their story, where they started from. There's some remarkable stories out there. And when we get the opportunity to bring them in front of new clients or prospective consumers, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. So how does it typically work? Let's say if it's a local product, not your big, conglomerates like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. They ship it to your warehouse and then I guess then you repackage it and just send them out to all the locations or
Correct. So we centrally warehouse everything in our office. It's our office and warehouse
hmm
in Springfield. So we would create a purchase order from them. They ship their product or deliver their product right here at the warehouse. We tag it, code it, put it in kind of our proprietary backend system, and then we deliver it to the location. So we build out what locations get what because every demographic is a little bit different. So then we
hmm
go through and deliver it from there.
And currently you're in how many locations?
So we have 20 right now. We've signed some very big contracts even recently. So we'll do about 2 to 3 times that in location setups by the end of 25.
Oh, that's
And
amazing. That's a great growth.
we're,
Congrats, man.
thank you. Yeah, I will say we have a fantastic team. I get the benefit and the joy of being able to like kind of jump on these and showcase Elevate and talk through it. But there's a fantastic team of guys here, guys and girls here who built Elevate to really what it is right now. So we were fortunate enough on a partnership. We partner exclusively with Ely Coffee. So we hold the right that anything Ely Coffee related for like office coffee, car dealership coffee that's Ely has to come through us for the DMV area. So that's helped us too and with our growth and how again partnerships, right? That's what we
Yeah,
always go back to is how do we partner and have a common goal that we're all trying to get to.
that's great. And your territory for Illy Coffee, you said it's a DNV?
Correct. Yep, it's the yeah, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So that's where it's been helping us. We have kind of a mix between office coffee and the vending side of things, and even
Hmm.
better, we couple the two together, so you get the best of everything all in one site.
How do you go about selecting which site, where's the best to go into? As far as is there like traffic patterns you look at and volume? How do you decide?
Yeah, we do a site walk initially. We kind of have our own little bit of I'll call it algorithm on how we look at, hey, is this going to be successful or not? A lot of that comes down to where's the placement, like within the building in and of itself. Is it off the beaten path? Is it right where someone can see it? We look at how many occupants are in that building, what's in the surrounding area, how quick can somebody walk to something else and get it? And then also that drives where our pricing is as well to make sure. So everyone's a little bit different, but that's really how we kind of start to step through that process when we have that, even that initial phone call of, hey, we'd like you to come here. And that's right where it starts.
Are you finding that most people are coming outreach to you, or you have to first, you're going out to them?
I say we have a mix. I mean, Elevate's growth has all been organic. It's been through relationships, it's been through conversations, it's been through people reaching out to us on our site, on LinkedIn. someone knew someone, or we worked with a property manager who then moved to another property management and said, "Hey, we want to put you guys here too." So almost all of our growth has been organic in many different ways. And we haven't had to pay to advertise it. So, we really go on that mentality like a rising tide lifts all boats. So by all working together, it kind of helps everybody.
Starting off, obviously, getting the word out there since no one knows you. If I can take you back for 3 years ago when you first started Elevate Vending, were you just like, hey, let me focus on this specific vertical and niche and go visit them or go call them, or how was the first like 90 days, 180 days?
It was phone call. I had to be like phone call Nick, and I had to be the guy I hate on the opposite side of that, of calling up with the unsolicited phone call of, "Hey, I'm Nick. I know you're not looking for me, and I know that this." I would always start off with, "I know that this is that unsolicited phone call. But if you have 2 minutes, let me just tell you, I want to see if we're a good fit for you and if you're a good fit for us." And it was kind of from that point. So it was just having a conversation.
Sure.
I mean, some of our contracts took a year before we actually ever closed them, but we did close them. So yeah, it was a lot of phone calls. It was chamber events. It was networking events, like anything in our resource pool to just try to get someone to even listen to Elevate Vending. And
Yeah.
that's what we needed to start with. So.
Back then, Nick, where were you looking to go into? And I guess how has that changed as today as far as, I'm sure when you start, you're sort of like, hey, let me just get into some places where there's some traffic. And now 3 years later, I'm sure now there's different requirements that you guys look at, right?
Sure. So we initially started like strictly really on businesses, like just business parks, business buildings with like
Hmm.
offices in them. Because it's kind of a demographic I kind of knew already and was like, yes, this is it, this is it, this is it. So as we started to gain momentum in those areas, we also indirectly were starting to you almost create your own pitfall at the same time. And if COVID taught us anything, if you put too many eggs in one basket, everyone
Yeah.
goes back to teleworking, and then that's pretty much all she wrote. So we initially start off in that kind of in that playground,
Hmm.
and then we started to branch more into like the automotive sector, and then also as calls came in for different things. Our focus in now is we're trying to get and continue to get more front facing to the public. A lot of our initial core places were more in a business building that you had to have access to get into. So we're servicing just that business park. And we're branching in our brand now into being more of a front facing thing. Like we've talked with the Children's National Hospital is one of our, kind of potential clients that we've talked with about getting into something that anybody can go and use.
Hmm. That'd be great if you can get it into Children's Hospital.
That'd be great for what they do and how they do it. And I have two little kids and everything. So it's again, we love mission focused businesses, that things that are solving a problem. I mean, we love every business, but we really love the ones that are giving back or doing something to kind of help further like the community.
Yeah, it's so true. And a lot of these machines are just so outdated. Just made me think. I mean, I don't use it that often, but probably the latest was when we were recently purchasing a vehicle for the family. And I have 3 boys, and we were there, and they have a little family area, what they call it, and they had I think 1 or 2 vending machines, and they wanted something to drink or some chips or something, and just your old school. You B6, here's $1 or 5 or whatever, hit it, and boom, it drops. Nothing at all with what you described. I wish that was there. I would have felt better purchasing it for the kids.
Yeah, something it was something that's different, right? And I think that I can tell you the thing that's always frustrated me, and it frustrates the guys here too. We see a lot of other brands, right? And there's some brands that do some things better than we do, right?
Hmm.
But the term healthy is such a subjective term that, what is healthy, right? And everyone's got a different ideology around it, right? Is it less sugar? Is it less, is it less sodium? Is it an apple? Like, what does it mean? And we see so many brands stamp that we carry healthy products because it says it is. And don't really take the time to understand, is it a better alternative? Is it a better product? Or is it something that, a major company pushed out that stamped it as healthy? So that's something that, we try and change that through the very front facing. It's right here. Like I said, Just Tea. It's right in
Hmm.
its name. It's right on its on the ingredients list, and it is a better alternative.
Yeah, no, that's great. What would you say, Nick, drives and motivates you?
I probably could say a few things. I mean, my family is always number one in that. You know, I have my wife, I have a almost 4 year old, and I have a 5 month old at home. You know, my immediate family, and then there's my mother, my sisters. Those are always the big driving force behind what I do and really give me the power to continue, kind of coming in every day, right, and rolling with the waves and how things flow in entrepreneurship, right? It's always a grind. Um, and really, like I said, to that give back mentality that I know I mentioned it probably 10 other times, not even thinking about it, but things that, help everybody, things that, we can do, people, and things that do for us, but something to make something better, right? To give back, to do something in a communal sense. That is a huge drive beyond, we're all in business to make money. But if you can do that and fix a problem or do something better that encourages everybody and get people involved from places that they weren't, um, I think that's it right there. I mean, that's the piece I absolutely love about this business and anything else that we've done.
That's great. How does your team look like today, Nick, compared to how it was 3 years ago when you started?
3 years ago, it was me and a little Jetta trying to figure out where I'm notoriously terrible with directions. So it was me with a GPS, with my Apple, my iPhone sitting there trying to figure out where I didn't even live here. So I had no idea where I was going. So it started off with myself. I have my two business partners, Joe and Sebastian,
Hmm.
who they were the first ones I called when I said, "Hey, got kind of this idea. I think we should all do it." And I don't know why, but they unconditionally backed me in that. And that's how it started off. So I was dealing with everything, and those guys were kind of in the backdrop, helping keep me, me square on where we're trying to get to, and maybe places to call and connections that they had. So we started off there. In Q2 of 24, Q1, Q2, I was able to bring in Chris, who's our operations director and who is here today. And he's now becoming a vested partner in the company as well. So he came in and he was doing the driving then. So I was able to kind of take a step back to focus a little bit more on the business stuff, the ordering, the things. We made a hire to Frankie, who's our full-time driver now. So now Frankie does all the driving. Chris does now all the operations and everything like that. We just brought in an intern to do our IT side of things. So she'll be with us for the next 4 months. She just did her first year at GMU. She's working here to learn about all the technology pieces that we have built and how to expand those. And we're bringing in another employee now to do more, loading of our warehouse so that we always know specifically what goes into a machine, but somebody has to put that into a very specified way to get it to the location. So we're going to be bringing in someone else. So the long of it, when I look from where we're at, geez, next month is going to be our official 2 year marker
Hmm.
from where we started to every Saturday, all week. And on Saturdays, me driving a little car out there to just go and like service anything we had to where we are now is sometimes we have to take a step back and be like, you're always in the grind of moving, right? How do we like pause and reflect back a little bit and say, all right, well, where did we come from?
Yeah. Do you guys now have trucks or vans besides the Volkswagen Jetta you said you started with?
Yeah, that thing's long gone. Yeah, so we have full size, fully wrapped, customized utility vans that we
Nice.
use that go and do all of our deliveries and everything like that. So they show up in this cool, big, nice blue Elevate vending with all of our branding and stuff like that. So it's how they go back and forth.
Oh, that's great. And you said you're in Springfield, right?
Springfield, yeah.
Okay. It's funny with this vending machine business. Sometimes, and I'm sure it happens, to you too or other people. There's in the feed, especially in social media. Oh, how to make money with vending machines? Like where to place them? How can you be an overnight millionaire? Do you have people that reach out to you and be like, "Hey, Nick, let me pick your brain," or I want to do something similar," or no?
Yeah, we actually did. Yesterday we got a call on Memorial Day. We got a call for it. So we actually did. It was kind of surprising. I did not expect that to be a piece of it, but we actually do get a pretty decent amount of phone calls of, "Hey, I want to get into the business and I've never done it before." But to your point, right? Everything, information is so readily available now. So you do. I watch those same TikTok accounts, right? That's like, "Hey, I placed two machines and I make $10,000 in passive income every month." And where I caution it is, you have to define what passive really is. True passive is I don't do anything. I
Yeah.
wake up and there's money in my account. And so it's not really passive, but for some people it's great. Not everybody has to start and build it into a whole brand and a service module and everything like that. For some people, it is great to, have a couple machines and it's a nice like little source of income and things like that.
A
And,
little
and it's,
part-time thing.
yeah, just let it be like call it your vacation money, right? Most people, at least like to go away for the summer or go spend a few days and say, hey, okay, I'm gonna get this machine and this is gonna pay for my trip to go to do something. So there's a lot of ways to get in to this industry, and there's so many areas to get into. You just figure out what area you want to be in.
So what advice, Nick, would you give to someone if they're hearing this? They're like, huh, I've always wanted to get into vending machine business, or maybe they just wanted to start their own business totally in a different industry and field. Any pointers?
To get into business, I always think if you're in it for the money, and a lot of people say this too, but if you're only in it to for money, that's it.
Hmm.
Uh, you're gonna burn out quicker than you probably think that you will. If your end goal is just how much money do I make, you're gonna burn a lot of bridges along the way to try to just get to that piece. So not focusing on the money, but that true passion. Like, is there a problem you're fixing that you are passionate about? Or is there an environment that you want to build and your enjoyment is bringing people into that environment? Kind of if understanding what makes you tick and in your why, if you can really figure out your why, you're kind of basing your business around a lot of that ideology. So that would always be my 2 cents. I always say this piece that we do here and why we've been able to tap the market. I believe beyond partnerships and things. It was shared to me such a long time ago and always stuck. It was fail fast and pivot quick. If you, especially as veterans, we have this, myself included, have this incessant need to plan, everything plan. And sometimes it's just in the act of doing, right? And
Hmm.
you figure it out, right? And you just realize what's detrimental and what's not. How much is it going to hurt me if it doesn't work? So we get a lot of the reason we've been able to mold our model as quickly as we have is it was direct feedback from things we thought. The things that didn't work, we found out very quickly it didn't work. The things that did work, we found out just as quickly it worked, and we need to continue that momentum. So, embracing that mentality of it doesn't always have to be perfected. You just have to try it.
Speaking about pivoting and seeing in real life, real live as far as what's working, what's selling, and what is it, what would you say, Nick, is I guess the biggest setback or failure you've had thus far in business, and what you learned from that?
Whew, biggest failure that we had. That's always a good one. Let me think about it. Um,
Or not even the biggest, just the first thing that comes to mind.
I'll say, and it has luckily, fortunately, what we didn't know at the time ended up with a positive spin on it. One thing, it was more of a hurdle that we dealt with as we actually had a twofold, two different areas hit us all at the same time. So one of the biggest, things that we had is some agreements that we've worked out with our vendors and manufacturer of our equipment that we had open-ended financing. That is massive. Getting capital in a business is one of the hardest things to do. The bank is not your friend at all. Then you can rely on your own personal or your friends and family, but that carries its own risk. So we had unconditional financing initially, or up to a certain amount. So we get a call one day, I mean, it was in 25. We got a call saying, hey, by the way, the market's shifting. We're cutting off funding to anybody and everybody. So we just went through a massive accelerator program we got selected for. I just met with my mentor after a week long, like very intense program. And he's boasting about how great it is we have all this funding. And I'm like, yeah, we do. We sure do. I just talked to him 5 days after that and say, hey, by the way, we have like none of this funding anymore. We've got like our reserve funds, but nothing that can even compare to what our scale is about to be.
Hmm.
So we had to work through that. Right. And so as we're working through that, we had a huge contract that we had done a pilot program for. And we did 4 locations as this pilot, very successful pilot program. They have over 50 locations just in the DMV area alone. That this was good, and then they're a nationwide company, so
Hmm.
publicly traded. So we're like, wow, right? A lot
Yeah.
of runway. We went to the table to expand to another 7 additional locations. And when we got back to the contract, it was, by the way, we want to take all of this stuff out, is what we got hit with. And it was all of our risk mitigation. It was everything that really our company is built on and why we're able to do these things. And they said, well, we're bigger and you're not. You do with it. So we got hit with this twofold thing all at the same time. And there was a lot of, internal amongst the partners, everything like that. We're sitting here talking about how do we get through this, right? We had
Hmm.
two things that felt like knockout blows right within about 2 week span of it. Um, we ended up being able to, our kind of triumphant piece of it. We went back to our manufacturer. I always encourage anybody, make your partnerships, but be open to other things. We went from that manufacturer, we went to another manufacturer, said, hey, we've got a lot in our queue. We'll jump ship. They said, never mind, come back to us, and here's your unconditional financing again.
Ah,
So we drove them back
changed
to
their
the table.
mind.
Yep. So drove it back and said, hey, we're serious. We want to keep our relationship, but we can't do it if it doesn't make sense. So we dealt with that one purview. So we're like, good, we're back on track, right, for our expansion, our growth. So then dealing with the contract piece for that company, we were willing to walk away reluctantly, right? But
Hmm.
I had to make this same kind of style phone call and say, hey, we really appreciate your time. We've been at this round and round of negotiation. We just can't absorb that level of risk. So we politely are going to decline the expansion opportunity, but there's ever any chance that you guys want to come back to the table, we always hold the doorway open. And no kidding, I got up from my desk. I walked into the bathroom, pretty much threw up on the spot from turning these guys away. That I was like, I can't believe we just turned this down. It was specced out. It was everything. And we paused. There's a lot of power in the pause, right? And we said, we're not going to engage it. We're going to just see. So 2 weeks after we sat, nothing, no, radio silence from both parties. And they actually came back to the table and said, we thought it over. We know what you guys are doing and we want to move forward with it. So drove them back. So, kind of biggest failure hiccup that all happened at the same time. The way I believe we were able to even get around that was our partnerships, our relationships, the advisement we got from other people from outside the company to help kind of guide us in this, like, hold steadfast and
Hmm.
don't take out that risk just because you're like, it's right there, right? Don't subject yourself. So, um, yeah, that was, I mean, that was this year alone. Those are the goods, the bads, and the indifference that go on behind the scenes. But, uh, I'm happy to say it turned into both triumphant stories, and it doesn't always turn out that way, but it did.
That's amazing. You need to give a class on negotiation, Nick.
That's, you know what, my wife would disagree with you, but um, yeah, I can tell you, if it wasn't for the backing of some of these guys, I can be, I think, like anybody, right? My wife will tell you stubborn, anything like that. But sitting there and having that tactical pause
Yeah.
to tell someone no and then walk away from someone who's, a publicly traded company and say, hey, I'm a small guy, but I don't need you. I can tell you that didn't sit easy for a while, for a while until we heard back. But
But you know what? You stuck to your guns and you know what was important to you. And you're like, you know what? Even though maybe there were some internal disagreements, in the company, but you knew what was the right thing as far as what you felt was right, right?
yeah, I did because I from my seat and being the CEO and my partners, you always have to look at this idea of, like, the decision you make today, how's it going to hurt you? Could it help you or is it going to hurt you? And what's the risk reward? And you can be
Hmm.
riskier in some areas and maybe not so much. So I always call it the knockout blow, right? You're always taking it on the, an uppercut to the chin, and stuff. You just don't want that one thing that's going to knock you out. But, like, I have a responsibility here to the employees of Elevate, to my partners, to our creditors, to our vendors, to our local partners, to make sure that I'm negotiating in good faith on their behalf too, right? And so it starts to evolve beyond just, yourself as a CEO, and it's, what is it? How does it affect everybody? And is that a risk? By me taking that risk, does that put others in a bad position? And it really looked like it would for Elevate and beyond Elevate. And that's where I don't want to say it's easy, but it kind of makes those choices a lot more clear on, like, how
Yeah.
to proceed and move forward. And then when they came back to a very fair negotiation, we were able to move forward, and now everybody wins, right? They got a little bit of a buffer on a few terms that we were saying it's okay to buffer on for us, and we want you to also ensure that that's mitigated in these areas. We were able to work it through.
That's great. If this, publicly traded company, I know you said they're national, but the focus is in the DMV. If they wanted to expand this model nationally, can you go out? Can you do that?
We can. So that's why walking away initially was so, hey, as we continue to expand this model, when we look to go into the Carolinas or Florida or, start
Hmm.
going down the East Coast, that's a phone call away to say, hey, we're here, help us there. So we're back on track for that, and
Okay.
to be in that area and continue that relationship. But that was essentially not just walking away from the DMV, but walking away from the
Yeah.
whole structure.
Wow. That's great. Since you have a growing team now, how does your day-to-day look like today?
Today, I mean, I'm nice. I get my cool private office now, which makes me, I don't know, I feel like it puts me on a weird pedestal that I don't know that I fit in. But yeah, my day to days, I wake up. Like I said, I have two really young kids. So
Hmm.
my wife is still active duty, so she works on Andrews now.
Okay.
So we both get up with both the girls. She kind of tackles the newborn, and I get the toddler. We get the two together, get them all shipped up, ready to go. They get dropped off at daycare, come into the office, we do our morning meetings, and really just start to roll through the day. So I'm fortunate enough now that we've grown to enough of a size, I'm able to kind of have a little bit more of a predictable work schedule. Where in the beginning you were everywhere, anywhere that ever needs you. It doesn't matter if it's a Sunday at 2, a Monday at 10 p.m., you're just there. So, able to kind of step back a little bit and run it and spend the time with the family that, those years you're never going to get back with your kids.
Yeah.
The business is always going to be growing, but so are your kids at the same time. And what's more important?
Yeah, that's true. What would you say is your biggest challenge day to day today with Elevate Vending?
Uh, Biggest thing, I mean, hiring in this marketplace is very difficult. It can be challenging to find. There's a lot of people out there, but trying to find the good ones and retain the good ones. And I feel that we've been able to do that here. And then it's going up against kind of the big guys, right? And being able to talk with, like our clients, like the University of Maryland's one of them, the World Bank is another one, like being able to get in front of it. So for us as Elevate, sometimes the hardest thing is just getting past the gatekeeper, right? There's always that one person in the chain that is going to wants to tell you no just because. It's just
Hmm.
getting around that. So, our climate for every business is change it's changing every single day. And information has never been more readily available than it is right now. That you can look something up and in 10 minutes figure out a whole process. So adapting to that constant moving environment, that constant moving target, it's just being flexible, know what your core is and then know where you can flex on things. So I mean, that's how we ultimately go about it, but it is changing.
Speaking about, and I hear from many clients, Nick, as far as the difficulties in finding, right team members to place in the right roles, right? How do you even go about finding it? I know you're growing the team, as you said, with a couple of new people coming in here. How do you even go about finding them?
Uh, for us, I mean, really, we've been able to, through networking or through people that we might have already known, or they came in from someone we knew. I always look at, it was the same things that in the military, you can teach almost any job to somebody, but you can't really teach like a demeanor, a personality, a way of going about it. So, like our operations director, Chris, he hasn't directly ran operations for another company, but he did some managing at another place. So, I find it's finding like the core, finding like what makes somebody tick or beat. That's the piece that you're retaining. And if they have that ability or that demeanor of wanting to learn, you can teach them the rest. So even as we were learning things, I'm learning things. Chris was right alongside there learning them. And so as we find them, that's how we're investing in the person, right? More so than even the job skill or the job in and of itself.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I agree. Coming to an end here soon, what do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
Continue to forge your partnerships and your relationships. be open, right? Be open to like listening to advisement, right? You myself included don't know everything as much as you might think you do, you don't. Um, so the more that you can lean on other people around you, even if it's just a conversation, and it's just, the best way, to get a dollar is put a dollar in someone else's pocket first, that, type of mentality. So really, for me, I wish I almost started sooner. I wish I started when I was even younger. Military, again, great career, gave me all the foundational pieces I believe are now. Um, Probably would have done this a lot earlier, even though it's a rat race and it's a never-ending, piece of your life. Uh, that's what I would have done, but that's why I tell everyone try it, right? I mean, you're gonna find out. Don't take a mortgage out on your or a lien out against your house to pursue it. Protect your own self, but just get out there and try it. Do it. Figure out what works. Figure out the problem that you're solving, and figure out what motivates you. And those other things will start to align themselves.
Speaking about not putting a lien in your house and growing you'd growing the business from there. Was it all bootstrap? Was it just like savings? And you said this manufacturer gave you an open line of credit to grow?
Yeah, and so to clarify, like our manufacturer allowed us to buy equipment, but that didn't solve any other problem which is buying product, employees, anything like that. So, our open-ended is, hey, you can order equipment from us.
Okay.
Um, we bootstrapped it. I was able to in the beginning kind of sell, the concept of Elevate at I mean, with no locations, just its concept for a small buy-in to the company. That buy-in allowed us to fuel, and there's money we spent that was well spent. There's money that we spent that was not, that we found out later well, that was a waste. But
Hmm.
bootstrapping the best that you can, and knowing that you don't have to grow, you don't have to be the next Apple tomorrow either. I think we all get in that mentality of how do we grow? How do we grow? How do we got to protect this? And how do you basically grow it aggressively but effectively at the same time? So any chance you get, I always, anytime anybody calls me up for advisement on vending, anything like that, never collateralize your own personal stuff. Like if you own a home, do not go, when you get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, and pull from that, you default on that, your business goes under, your house is the first thing that goes, right? And that's the IRS who collects on most things with like SBA loans, everything like that. So the more that you can bootstrap, and even if it might take you a little longer to organically grow it, I mean, for my opinion, I think that's the best way to do it.
You were just mentioning earlier, Nick, as far as some investments worked out and then some didn't. What would you say was the biggest ROI, the biggest return on your investment for the company that you've had?
Uh, it's not even at a monetary value. It goes back to partnerships. It was dumping dollars that weren't necessarily fueling one thing, but dumping it more into building and fostering a relationship with others
Hmm.
that fueled that piece. So like I'll say our contract with Ely Coffee was kind of fostered on that. And then what that opened up down the road was huge for us. So on a monetary side, I would say one of our biggest assets beyond the brand, branding, massive. I think that was just like you had said earlier. Nobody was doing it, right? Like
Hmm.
everything's pretty run of the mill. It's story is just off the shelf. It's pretty basic, right? Buy soda here, and that's all
Yeah.
it is. So, our branding and then investing in our back end system, are like two really critical things that I think had the best ROI because it allowed people to care from the branding side and it allowed us to do operations efficiently from the back end side to give them what that brand really showcases.
You've said multiple times as far as, hearing advice and getting advice and, did you have any mentors? And if so, what was the biggest takeaway from that?
Uh, like I've had a lot of mentors over time. Just and again with the relationships, um, one of our biggest ones, like Dan Larson from Gross Mendelson, is our CPA, has given us like really advisement along the way as I've hit things that were outside of my purview as an entrepreneur. And hey, I've never negotiated this. This is how I think, but what do you think? Um, Joining the PenFed Foundation, we were able to gain a lot more individuals as well that helped us kind of figure out these different risk points, things like that. So, I kind of find mentorship kind of all around. And
Hmm.
again, it's not always just giving a call and say, "Hey, what can you do for me?" Or "This is what's going to help my business, so tell me what it is." Right? It's just a conversation just like this. "Hey, this is what we're working on, and you've got experience in this area." We're working with Monumental Sports Group right now for, part of Capital One Arena. That came from our partnership with Mighty Meals that introduced us to a guy from there who introduced us to another guy from there that turned into this type of thing. So, the mentorship along the way kind of helps you to get in. And a lot of it too is you got to just figure out and you just got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna get 1,000 pieces of advisement all the time. And if I had $1 for every time someone told us starting a vending business post-pandemic was a bad idea, I wouldn't have even needed to start Elevate. No one's working in office, no one's going back there. Everyone knows what vending is. What impact are you really going to make? That was what we had. So if I took that advisement the whole time, we wouldn't be where we are. So weighing it out.
Yeah. It's so true what you said. Like it's all about relationship, and you can see it firsthand. Like you just gave that example with Mighty Meals, and look where you are today as far as where possibly you can go.
Yeah, and you never know. That's the thing. Some of the calls that we get are ones that we don't expect, and it's not always a golden doorway you walk through and then it's just you're successful. Then you're just there, right? It's a
Hmm.
constant moving piece, but um yeah, you just have to measure what do you think success is. Some people it's money, some people it's their team, some people it's their offering, it's a conglomerate. So
What does the next couple of years look like for you in Elevate Vending? What are you most excited about?
I'm excited like for the types of clients that we have, right? You won't find an Elevate machine maybe necessarily in front of like a 7-Eleven, but um I'm excited for what we're getting posture to like continue like our give back, right? And we're working with the PenFed Foundation on, a couple different possibilities, but ways in which that between two, our company's platform and their powerhouse behind them and how they give back to veterans, how can we put those two things together? So hopefully it's going to continue to expand. It's going to continue to grow. We will hit a point where we want to level off a little bit, as we continue to ensure that are we meeting the correct standards that we want to push out. But I'm excited for those, right? Talking with new vendors, excited for what opportunities, what programs can we create based on our platform that, again, really passionate about veterans coming out of the military. Um, we give back to a veterans homeless shelter. Like, what can we do in those areas to help get back? And that's really what we're continuing to posture towards is a bigger vision.
That's great. I know you said you have two little ones at home. So when you're not busy working and running the company, Nick, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Yeah, free time. That's I don't have a lot of that. But really it's with my two girls, my wife. Um, just try. I mean, we get together with my mother and my family all the time. I'm a big hockey fan, like I mentioned, and I I built this really crazy automation room in our downstairs. My wife said, "Hey, our dog had to be put down back in January, which was sad, but she was like, "Hey, we live in a townhouse." She's like, "That downstairs area was where he kind of laid, and what if you make that your hockey room?" So I was like, "Oh, cool, right? Let's see what that is." So I figured out how to get one Philips Hue light bulb to interact with the Capitals hockey game. So I was like, "All right, cool. Well, I wonder if I can do one light. What if I get like four lights? Can I make like four lights do it?" And I was like, what if I get a fog machine? And like, what if I get an air horn and built out this just like 5 TV screen
Whoa.
complex thing like in this downstairs. My wife was like, this is not what I signed on for. But that became like that was projects, right? That, beyond just working on the house, but like a project that's something that like my daughter Letty, my 4-year-old, we go downstairs. The whole family goes downstairs. We watch the games when the goal, when they score, the fog machine goes off, the lights go red. It feels like you're in Capital One.
Oh, wow.
So we build out, that's a fun like little side project and stuff I do with her and like with my daughter and things like that. But it's really it's family based. It's doing things like that, and then I like to go walk. I pace around incessantly, and I'm always on the phone. But just sometimes even to go try out someplace new, go kayaking, something just to kind of get away from being plugged in all the time is
Yeah.
that's crucial for me. If not, I get burnt out after a long time.
That's pretty cool, Nick. So when the Caps score a goal, like
Yeah.
all this goes off automatically, the lights, everything.
Everything. So I'll back it up. There's a pregame intro that goes on that
Okay.
all the lights interact with. So it's just like when you're at the arena and they have the whole pregame thing and there's lights and fog and dubstep music goes crazy on all the TVs. And then yeah, so and then when they score, um yeah, it plays the goal song, it flashes stuff on the TVs. The fog machine goes off. There's a goal light on the ceiling that goes off. I mean, it's this whole thing and that goes right back to where it was. So it's ready to go as soon as the next goal happens. And then yeah, I have Google text to speech. So
Okay.
like it'll announce when the game's getting ready to go on. So like our kitchen's got a little speaker. I'll say, hey, 30 minutes to puck drop. Like, the Washington Capitals are playing the Edmonton Oilers tonight, and then the lights do a little sequence. So it tells us to go downstairs and turn the game, the
Okay.
game's already on. So it's taken on an absolute life of its own, but it's like one of the funnest things that, truth be told, that was I want to say that got us talking with Monumental, but it certainly helped when we when we showed this. Hey, look at we're pretty big fans over here, if you can
Yeah.
see. So
Wow, that's awesome. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today. If people want to learn more about you and Elevate Vending, where can they go to, please?
yeah, absolutely. Our website, best way if you go, it's elevatevend.com. Any of our social media is Elevate Vend, not vending. So anything at Elevate Vend, and anybody I always say who's looking to start a business, is running a business, we've all been there, right? It's a commonality. So information is right on our website, to ever reach out, find a way to have a conversation, anything. I love talking business. So there's anything that anybody has questions on, I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you again, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course, the pleasure's all mine. Take care.
You too.